At least Christine is useful for something, my mother says, smiling. The chandelier applauds while my stomach knots. I steady the turkey like it might steady me. Christmas Eve. Connecticut. Guests. Practiced laughter. Cold perfume. I am Christine Hale, 33, CEO of Aurora Events. 15 years building miracles for people who remember my appetizers. To my family, I'm still the help in an apron. In the dining room, Senator Williams praises Melissa's promotion. Our pride and joy, my mother purrs to the table. And Christine? A pause long enough to carve. She's quite handy in the kitchen. The silver reflects me in pieces. I choose the sharpest one. Next year I won't be here, not cooking, not invisible. 3 days from tonight, they'll learn what consequences taste like. This is the last holiday I'll ever serve them. Have you ever faced something like this? Tell me in comments. The kitchen makes me small, no matter how I stand. Every holiday here, I'm brilliant help and invisible daughter. It didn't start tonight. At 18, flower on my sleeves, I served Christmas. I chose culinary school over Ivy. The room froze. My mother smiled for guests and iced me with silence. My father poured wine and avoided my eyes. 15 years later, I run Aurora without their applause. We land presidencies, rebrands, impossible weddings that never miss. At home, I'm useful, like a ladle on a hook. They love what I make, not the woman making it. I plate perfection. They scrape me for parts. My mother needs a daughter who flatters her reflection. Melissa provides that. Polished, blonde, purposefully ruthless. I provide outcomes and become a threat. The numbers should have saved me. Double-digit growth. 0 late payments. Flawless audits. My father still calls it a little business phase. Elizabeth sees me clearly. She calls me a strategist, not a server. When the room tilts, she is the handrail. James brings receipts and a steady yes. They are the family my work deserved. But blood keeps its ledger open. Vendors raise prices after family dinners. Clients ghost after my mother's luncheons. The anonymous inspection before the governor's gala. Hours of chaos. I called it bad luck and worked harder. They called it protecting our reputation and kept smiling. I rehearsed approval speeches in their language. I was never fluent in that dialect of hunger. They feed on proximity to power, then starve the source. Christmas Eve crystallizes the pattern I refused to name. I am not unseen. I am strategically obscured by the people who benefit whenever I stay small. They didn't misunderstand me. They downgraded me on purpose. And it ends here. The heater hums while snow needles the windshield. Elizabeth drives in silence. We can turn around, she says. I stare forward and breathe. Worse than last year. Because now I see it. 3 days later, I push the club door. I came for a portfolio. I found my mother's voice instead. Hushed, razor smooth through the reading room. Christine has no idea about Horizon, she says. Melissa laughs, bright and practiced. The Williamsons sit on their board, she purrs. Legal confirmed the contract's over $2 million. Keep your voice down, my father warns. I step closer, hidden by a fern. My heart counts seconds, then stops. I've been calling her vendors for months, Melissa whispers. Hints, capacity issues, late payments. Paper rustles, a file changes hands. Client list, vendor terms. Financial summaries. She's good for a chef. Good enough to embarrass us, my mother replies. So we redirect conversations when possible. The world tilts and rights itself, not neglect. Engineering, not ignorance, strategy. An inspection before the governor's gala. The Sandersons postponing after mother's lunch. Vendors hiking prices after Melissa's visit. Pieces click, forming a blade. I leave before the door opens. Marble doubles, then narrows. I text Elizabeth, confirmed. She replies, conference room, 10 minutes. Manhattan glass replaces club portraits. Elizabeth brings a folder. Family incidents. She slides a timeline across the table. Inspections. Vendor calls. Client doubts. Pinned to birthdays, holidays, luncheons. James arrives with spreadsheets and calm. I map disruptions to family events, he says. The correlation isn't coincidence, it's design. Red spikes ring every gathering. My stomach drops, then hardens like ice. For years, I translated cruelty as confusion. I called sabotage bad luck because I wanted love. Today, I prefer the truth. They know exactly who I am. They reduce me because it benefits them. It keeps Melissa shining in borrowed light. It keeps my mother's story neat. Document everything, I say. Dates, calls, names, inspection numbers. Elizabeth nods, already sorting evidence. James drafts an audit request. I list vendors we absolutely trust. Then vendors who fold under pressure. We plan redundancies and a press binder. We secure statements from anchor clients. No panic, only process. I am done performing daughter. I am operating as CEO. By dusk, the boardroom is a war map. Notes, arrows, receipts, affidavits. Patterns that once gaslit me now guide me. The kitchen door in my memory stays shut. I will not carry platters through it again. I book a table at Bellini's, center floor. Witnesses. No private rewrites. If they want theater, I'll choose the stage. If they want power, I'll show its spine. I sharpen my voice to a point. Not to wound, but to end the bleeding. I look at the city and exhale. The room respects me back. They didn't overlook my success. They feared it and tried to bury it alive. I arrive at Bellini's early central table by the windows. Anthony brings water and a quiet nod of recognition. I lay out evidence like silver. Reports, transcripts, timelines, receipts. The room hums with lunch traffic, a safe kind of audience. Melissa sweeps in, late, immaculate, and bright. You look tired, she says, unfolding her napkin. Those big events must be exhausting. Only when someone calls inspectors the day before, I answer. Her eyes flicker, then still. What are you talking about? I slide the report across the table. The inspector named the caller, I say. Family. I let the word hang. She doesn't touch the paper. I was concerned, she says, voice silk over steel. About sanitation, about your capacity. Capacity? I open my folder, careful and slow. Vendor transcripts, timestamps, phone logs. Here's you posing as staff. Here's you hinting insolvency. Here's the Hendersons, interviewed by your firm, canceling a week later. Her smile tightens, the mask strains. Mother's here, she says, relief rushing in. Evelyn appears in burgundy. Pearls steady, eyes sharper than knives. What is this drama, Christine? She asks, sitting without invitation. Evidence, I answer, of sabotage. Evelyn glances at the papers, then at nearby diners. We should discuss this privately. No, I say. Privacy has always protected the wrong side. A couple at the next table slows their forks. The hum of the room leans closer. We were protecting the family, Evelyn whispers. From rumors, from embarrassment. Then explain these calls to Horizon, I say. 3 names. Dates. Extensions. My notes are surgical. Melissa freezes, then exhales. I warned them to be careful, she admits quietly. Your company might be overextended. 15 years of perfect audits, I reply. 0 missed payments. Highest health scores in the state. Evelyn's lip curls. You're emotional. I'm prepared, I say, setting down a recorder. A clipped voice plays. Melissa at a vendor showcase, claiming affiliation. Murmurs roll across the room like a small tide. Enough, Evelyn hisses. You will not humiliate us in public. You did that yourselves, I say, keeping my voice level. Here's the next part. Any further interference triggers attorneys and the district attorney's office. I will not debate my livelihood over espresso. I stand, place cash for 3 lunches, and gather the file. Melissa whispers, you wouldn't dare. Watch me, I say, and the words feel clean. Outside, the winter light is blunt and honest. Elizabeth waits at the curb, eyes asking, hands steady. Before I reach the door, Anthony jogs over, breathless. Christine, the chamber needs a planner next month, he says. Are you available? We are, I answer, and something unclenches in my chest. Through the glass, my mother and sister fold into whispers. They won't retreat, they never do. They will escalate. Next, they'll aim for Horizon, and I'll be waiting at the boardroom door. The voicemail hits like a gavel on glass. Emergency board meeting at Horizon, 8 a.m. Concerns were raised. Full review. Bring documentation. I don't panic, I pack truth. Elizabeth prints audits from 2 independent firms. James compiles 5-year retention and payment histories. I draft a narrative that honors facts. We rehearse answers until they breathe. Morning draws surgical light over Manhattan. I enter Horizon's boardroom without flinching. 20 executives. Dark wood. Quiet power watching. My mother sits beside Melissa, pearls bright. Victoria Foster waits at the screen. CEO Gregory Townsend gestures toward a chair. Thank you for coming on short notice. Victoria starts with graphs and gravitas, selective troughs, omitted context, manufactured red flags, leadership volatility, she says, financial concerns. My mother folds concern around contempt. We felt obliged to alert you. I hand a drive to their technician. Full books, 5 years, double verification. James distributes folders, tabs clean and clear. 87% retention. 0 missed payments. Highest health inspection scores statewide. Numbers change the oxygen in the room. Elizabeth connects her tablet to the display. Timeline of interference, she says, steady. Anonymous complaints mapped to family gatherings. Vendor calls traced to the Hale residence. Recordings of Melissa posing as our staff. Emails soliciting confidential concerns about capacity. Dates, extensions, screenshots, only evidence. A legal voice clears his throat. Ms. Foster, disclose your prior litigation? Her posture flickers, then resets. I was engaged for an objective review. Sarah Winters Operations lifts a brow. I received a call from Melissa. She questioned Aurora's execution scale. She never disclosed the relationship. Across the table, Melissa's jaw tightens. My father finally meets my eyes. We were protecting you from failure, he says. You built a house on new money. I choose the cleanest sentence. You tried to torch the foundation first. Townsend studies our binders in silence. Pages turn, pens tap, assumptions shift. He addresses the room without ceremony. This reads as interference, not intelligence. We value integrity more than whispers. He looks at me, not through me. Ms. Hale, present your execution plan. I outline staffing across 5 cities. Contingencies for supply, weather, vendor pressure. Financing lines secured and unused. Crisis protocol tested at presidential fundraisers. I finish. The room holds still. Townsend nods once, calm and decisive. The board will deliberate 30 minutes. We step into a corridor of sunlight. My hands remember silver platters trembling. Elizabeth squeezes, James steadies the ground. We're called back sooner than expected. My family is gone. Foster is pale. Townsend stands. His verdict is plain. Horizon awards the contract to Aurora. Additionally, we propose global partnership expansion. There's no applause here, only respect. I shake his hand and hold center. Outside, the city noise crowns the moment. They came to bury me. They left without a shovel. 6 months later, the Waldorf lights hold me like a vow. Crystal prisms scatter across faces that once doubted my name. I breathe, step forward, and accept the industry award. Not for perfection, but for boundaries that refuse to bend. Elizabeth beams from the front table, steady as sunrise. James sits beside her, numbers softening into pride. We built this company on clarity, receipts, and trust. We kept it alive with loyalty that money can't buy. The press asks about Horizon's expansion worldwide. I talk about execution, then I talk about choice. Success isn't louder rooms. It's choosing who gets a seat. The room listens, and I feel fully seen. My parents arrive late, careful and formal calm. Melissa's smile is smaller. The mirror finally tells truth. I greet them politely, then return to my circle. Respect isn't revenge. It's refusing to negotiate your worth. Later, I announce the Aurora Foundation for Women Entrepreneurs. We fund skill, but we teach boundaries first. Talent without boundaries attracts takers, I say into silence. The applause feels like closure without apology. My father approaches, hands uncertain, voice low with history. Your grandmother would be proud, he says, almost believing. She taught recipes, I answer, and the price of self-respect. He nods, holding his silence like a white flag. Outside, December snow edits the city into clean lines. Elizabeth loops her arm through mine. James falls in step. We walk toward the future we built on purpose. I don't owe the past what the future requires. Have you ever faced something like this? Tell me in the comments. Your voice matters here. If you've been through this, you're not alone. There's a table waiting with your name on it. When family shows you who they are, believe them. Then build without permission.
When Grandpa called to say he couldn't wait to see me pull up in the car he gave me, I lied and told him I didn't have a license yet. That wasn't true. I'd had my license for almost 6 years, but the car wasn't mine. Not really, not anymore. He sounded so proud over the phone, just like he had when he handed me the keys last summer. Graduating medical tech in a pandemic, Cynthia, that's grit. I want you to have something solid. You earned it. It was a used 2012 Subaru Outback solid mileage, well kept. He'd even left a note inside the glove box written in shaky ink, so you can go wherever you want, on your own terms. I thanked him through tears that day. But the next morning, Mom Linda Whitman told me the registration would have to wait until we figured out the insurance. That turned into needing repairs, then emissions, then some DMV backlog. Then silence. For months, every time I asked about the car, I got deflection. We're just keeping it safe, she'd say. It's not going anywhere, my dad, Frank Whitman, added once, never looking up from his tablet. Eventually, the car disappeared from their driveway. When I visited unannounced, it wasn't there, and neither of them brought it up again. I stopped pushing. I told myself I was being ungrateful. That maybe they were right, maybe I wasn't ready to handle more responsibility. I was living with a roommate doing temp jobs in Seattle while applying to every hospital within 30 miles. I could barely afford groceries, let alone car insurance. But when Walter Whitman, my grandfather, invited the whole family to his house for Father's Day, said he was firing up the old grill making his signature peach cobbler and couldn't wait to see his girl behind the wheel, I knew I couldn't avoid it anymore. I hadn't been back there in over a year. Not since graduation. Not since I saw my name on the title he signed. "Will Linda be there?" I asked quietly. He chuckled. "Of course, everyone's coming. It's not a Whitman barbecue if someone doesn't bring potato salad no one touches." I agreed to come. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see the car again. I needed to know if I'd imagined it all, if I'd made something small into something bigger out of stubborn pride. I needed something real to hold on to. So I took the bus across town, brought a store-bought pie, and wore the same sundress I graduated in. When I got to Grandpa's place, the smell of charcoal and sweet corn hit me like a memory I hadn't earned. He was there on the porch, waving his dog Jasper at his feet. "Cynthia," he called. "There she is." He didn't ask where the car was. Not yet. I stepped onto the grass, waved back, and tried not to look at the driveway. I didn't want to know if it was parked there. Not yet. We were halfway through grilled chicken and corn on the cob when Grandpa raised his lemonade like a glass of champagne and said loud enough for the whole backyard to hear, "Glad to see you here, Cynthia. And I hope the car's treating you well. That thing should last you a decade if you take care of it." The table paused. A few cousins looked up mid-bite. Someone laughed politely, but I didn't laugh. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might be sick. I looked down at my plate like it might offer me a script, but there were no lines for this part. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. The lie came quickly, just not from me. Mom, sitting across the table in a coral linen blouse, dabbed the corner of her lips with a napkin and smiled. "Oh, Dad, that's sweet." She decided not to keep it after all. Said it was too much to manage while job hunting. "We've just been using it for errands in the meantime. No harm done." Her voice was syrupy, just the right amount of self-deprecating, like she was doing me a favor by explaining my absence. She looked around like she'd just solved a small misunderstanding. I blinked at her. That voice had soothed me as a child explained away bad dreams and teenage disappointments. Now it made my skin crawl. Grandpa seemed puzzled but not concerned. He nodded, taking a sip. "Well, long as someone's using it." I couldn't speak. I wasn't sure what would come out if I did. No one else seemed bothered. No one looked my way. The air buzzed with the sound of cicadas' forks scraping paper plates and a dog barking across the fence. Just background noise to a moment that cracked something open inside me. I felt 14 again standing in the kitchen while Mom smoothed over something I didn't do with that same tone, the one that always made adults believe her first. I pushed food around on my plate. Someone passed me another spoonful of coleslaw. I smiled, nodded, took it, but my heart was thudding. That car wasn't too much to manage. I'd asked about it dozens of times. I'd called the insurance company. They told me the policy had been placed under a new name. I tried to activate coverage, but I was told I wasn't listed on the title anymore. I'd even gone to the DMV. The clerk looked at me like I was confused. "Linda Whitman's the registered owner," she said, tapping the screen. I never told Grandpa. I didn't want to disappoint him, or worse, make him think he'd chosen the wrong person to believe in. I kept hoping it was some misunderstanding that would fix itself, but it hadn't. And now, my own mother was rewriting the story line by line in front of people who mattered, and they were nodding along. I took a breath, looked around at the table, and realized no one was coming to correct her. No one even looked surprised. Maybe they believed her. Maybe they always had. My father, Frank, sat quiet beside her, sipping his iced tea like it was any other Sunday. No eye contact. Just steady avoidance like he'd perfected it. For the rest of the meal, I went quiet too. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I wasn't ready to say it here, not yet. Not while my voice could still be twisted into something that didn't belong to me. But I was done pretending I'd forgotten. Done acting like I was the one who gave something up. After dinner, while the others started clearing plates and chatting by the grill, I walked to the far end of the yard and pulled out my phone. There, in a folder labeled Documents, was everything. The DMV letter showing the title transfer, screenshots of emails never returned, the insurance rejection, and one voice memo from 3 months ago recorded in my parents' kitchen. "Linda, that car, Cynthia, come on. You're not ready for that kind of freedom yet. Let us handle it. You'll thank us later." I stared at the file. I hadn't listened to it since I recorded it. My hands trembled slightly, but not from fear. From certainty. They hadn't just taken the car, they'd taken the story. And tonight, I was finally ready to take it back. The garage smelled like old paint and grass seed. The lights were off, but a sliver of evening sun slipped through the window, enough for me to see the shape in the far corner. There it was, the Subaru. My Subaru. It sat clean polished, even tucked behind a folding table and a stack of patio chairs, like it had never left, like it had never been taken. I walked up to it slowly, letting my hand brush the driver's side mirror. My breath caught. I opened the door, it was unlocked, and sat in the seat just long enough to close my eyes. The seat was pushed far back, too far for me. Mom always liked the extra space. I didn't cry, not then. I just sat for a moment, hands in my lap, feeling the weight of silence fill every corner of the car. This wasn't about convenience. It never had been. They hadn't taken the car because I couldn't manage it. They'd taken it because I could. And that scared them more than anything. I stood up, closed the door gently, and stepped back into the house. The back screen creaked behind me. From the den, I heard pages turning. Grandpa was in there alone, sitting in his recliner by the fireplace, flipping through one of the old family photo albums. Jasper, his beagle, lay curled on the rug. He didn't look up when I entered, just kept turning the page, pausing every now and then on a photo. I waited a second before speaking. "Grandpa." He looked over, and there it was, that same look I remembered since I was 5. Steady, warm. A look that had never once made me feel small. "Hey, kiddo. Everything all right?" I sat on the ottoman beside him. My voice came out quieter than I expected. "I think you should see something." He raised an eyebrow, closing the album. What kind of something? I took out. My phone, opened the folder, and handed it to him. First, the email from the DMV confirming that the title had been re-registered under Linda Whitman. Then, the letter from the insurance company. The screenshots of unanswered emails. The denial from the agency when I tried to update coverage. And finally, the voice recording. He put the phone on speaker, and we listened together. "That car, Cynthia, come on. You're not ready for that kind of freedom yet. Let us handle it. You'll thank us later." The room went still, except for the quiet hum of the old fan. Walter didn't speak for a while. He just sat there, the phone resting in his palm, eyes fixed on the wall, like it held something he hadn't wanted to see. When he finally spoke, it was barely above a whisper. "So you're telling me they lied to me, changed the title, took the car, and told you to keep quiet?" I nodded. He clenched his jaw. Not in anger, at least not the kind that explodes. It was older than that, deeper. He stood, slowly ran a hand over his head, and turned toward the doorway. "Get everyone in the living room." I looked up. Now he said, steady as stone, "We're settling this tonight." The living room still smelled like barbecue sauce and citronella. Wrapping paper and ribbon scraps from Grandpa's gag gifts were scattered under the coffee table. For a second, it could have passed as any Sunday night at Walter Whitman's. But no one was laughing now. One by one, the family filtered in cousins with sunburned shoulders, aunts balancing pie plates, and refilled sodas uncles still wearing aprons from manning the grill. The chatter died when they saw Walter standing in front of the fireplace, hands folded behind his back. Linda and Frank were the last to enter. She had reapplied her lipstick, still smiling, still playing the hostess. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Everything okay?" Dad Linda asked lightly, easing down beside Grandma Helen. Walter didn't answer. He just glanced at me, then gave a slight nod. I stood slowly and moved toward the center of the room. My palms were sweating. My knees weren't steady, but my voice held. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, I began. "But since the car came up and since my mother decided to rewrite the truth in front of all of you, I think it's time you hear the real story." A few people shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. I pulled out my phone, opened the file, and tapped play. That car, Cynthia, come on. You're not ready for that kind of freedom yet. Let us handle it. You'll thank us later. It was Linda's voice, clear, unapologetic. There was a pause, then a few gasps. A mug clinked hard against a table. Linda laughed too quickly. That's taken out of context. But no one echoed her. I turned to the TV on the wall, opened the screen mirror function, and tapped through each image. The DMV confirmation that the title was no longer in my name, the email chain with my unanswered questions, the rejection from the insurance company, the photograph of the car parked in their driveway while I walked to job interviews in the rain, and last a short video I had filmed outside the DMV. This is the car my grandfather gave me. I haven't been able to drive it. I haven't even been allowed to sit in it. The title was changed, the insurance was blocked, and no one told me. Silence stretched across the room like static. I locked eyes with my mother. Her smile had vanished. You wanted control, I said. So you made me look irresponsible. You made me look like someone who didn't deserve what I'd earned. She blinked rapidly. Her voice, when it came, was thinner than usual. We didn't mean harm. It was for your own good. You were overwhelmed. Walter stepped forward, eyes not leaving hers. Context, he repeated. You stole from your own daughter, lied to me, and then sat here tonight pretending you did it out of love. Frank cleared his throat. We thought it was best. She's still young, don't. Walter's voice cut sharp. Don't you dare. He turned to me. I'm calling my lawyer first thing in the morning. That title is going back into your name, fully, legally. If I have to drive you to the courthouse myself, I will. And if either of them takes one more dime related to that vehicle, they'll answer to me. No one said a word. Linda's eyes glistened, but no tears fell. Frank stared at the rug as if it could swallow him. Across the room, someone whispered to their spouse. Another cousin shifted away from the couch where Linda sat. Walter wasn't finished. He looked out across the room at everyone. Let this be clear, I love my family. But I will not confuse silence with weakness. This young woman has worked, scraped, and carried more than most of you know, and all she asked for was a way to get where she needed to go. I gave her that, and what some of you did, what you allowed, was try to take it away. He paused, then turned to me again. You didn't let them, and I'm proud of you. The living room emptied slowly like a storm receding without apology. Paper plates scraped into trash bags, chairs folded and stacked against the wall. No one said goodbye to me. A few avoided my eyes. Most avoided his. Linda didn't speak again. She stood stiffly, gathered her purse and sweater, and walked out to the car, my car, without looking back. Frank followed behind her, quiet as ever. Neither one of them said goodnight to Grandpa, and for once, Grandpa didn't say it back. I stayed behind, still sitting near the fireplace. The house was quiet, except for the low hum of the ceiling fan and the tick of the grandfather clock Walter had fixed more times than anyone could count. He lowered himself into the recliner beside me. For a while, we didn't speak. I never wanted it to come out like that, I said softly. It needed to, he answered. Sometimes the truth waits, but eventually it has to come out where everyone can see it. I looked over at him. He wasn't angry, just tired in a way I hadn't seen before. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, they'd come around, give it back, apologize. They weren't planning to. He said it like a fact, not cruel, just clear. Then he looked straight at me. You did the right thing. You kept your dignity. And when it counted, you told the truth. That car was just a thing. But what they did, what they tried to erase, that was your voice. I didn't know what to say to that. I'd spent months blaming myself for not being louder, for not fighting harder. But now sitting here, I realized I had waited not out of weakness, but because I still hoped they'd choose right without being forced. You know, Grandpa added, reaching into his shirt pocket, I kept the original paperwork. Just in case. He pulled out a folded envelope worn soft at the corners. Inside was the original bill of sale signed by him with my name still on it. We'll take this to the DMV first thing Monday. Together. I took the paper, gently holding it like something fragile. Thank you. He smiled, not the proud grin from the barbecue, but something quieter, wiser. You didn't ask for a fight. You just wanted what was already yours. That's not selfish. That's fair. That's when I understood the real gift wasn't the car. It was that someone in my family finally saw me as capable and didn't need me to prove it twice. The Department of Licensing was quieter than I expected. A few people sat slumped in plastic chairs waiting for their numbers to be called. Somewhere in the background, a baby cried, and someone's Bluetooth speaker buzzed faintly. Grandpa stood beside me at the counter, arms folded across his chest, his expression unreadable. He had insisted on wearing a button-down, and slacks said government offices still deserved respect, even if the lines didn't. "You've got everything he asked." I nodded, holding the manila folder close to my chest. Inside was the bill of sale, the title, the insurance denial, and his letter confirming the gift. I had gone over every page the night before twice. The clerk at the counter was young, barely out of high school. She skimmed the documents, eyes darting between the names. "So, we're reassigning this vehicle to Ms. Cynthia Whitman, correct?" Grandpa said before I could answer. She asked for signatures. I handed over my ID. Grandpa signed the affidavit. I did too. And just like that, my name was back where it belonged. The new title would come in the mail within 2 weeks. "That's it?" I asked, almost surprised. "Sometimes things don't need to be dramatic," he said. "Just done." We walked back to his truck. He held the door open for me like he always did when I was little. This time, I didn't argue. Afterward, we stopped at a diner down the road. Formica tables, cracked vinyl booths, the smell of bacon and burnt coffee baked into the walls. He ordered black coffee and eggs over easy. I got pancakes and orange juice, though I barely touched them. For the first few minutes, we didn't talk. Then he reached across the table and set the folded gift note between us. The one that had been in the glove box. "I held on to this too," he said. "Didn't feel right until today." I opened it slowly. Same handwriting, same words. "So you can go wherever you want, on your own terms." This time I believed it. The keys felt different in my hand this time. I didn't rush. I slid into the driver's seat, adjusted the mirrors, ran my hand once across the steering wheel. The seat was back in the right place now. I didn't have to ask anyone's permission to move it. The garage door opened slow with that familiar metal groan. Sunlight spilled in, touching the hood like it recognized me again. I started the engine. It turned over on the first try, steady and warm. I didn't call anyone, didn't take a picture, didn't send an update. There was no announcement to make no one I needed to prove anything to. I just backed out of the driveway, rolled down the window, and let the wind touch my face. The neighborhood looked the same, mowed lawns, dogs barking, someone grilling 2 houses down, but I wasn't the same girl who stood outside this car for months, wondering what she'd done wrong. I turned onto the main road, took the long way home. No destination, just motion. Just the hum beneath me that said, "This is yours." I didn't blast music. I didn't cry. I didn't rehearse what I'd say if someone asked what happened, because no one needed to ask. Somewhere between the second light and the curve past the old church, I exhaled. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a win. It wasn't even closure. It was something quieter, something like return. No apology, no ceremony, just the keys. I came home 10 years late. Not that anyone said it. No welcome sign. No hug in the driveway. Just a couch that smelled like dust and old cologne and a pillow thrown at me like an afterthought. My name's Carol Callahan. I served 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. I was military police. I came back with a limp, a back full of screws, and a head that never quite stopped spinning. I hadn't been home for Christmas in a decade. I thought that mattered. My mother, Diane, had set the table like it was a catalog shoot, polished silverware, 3 different pies, ham glazed to perfection. Everything sparkled except the people. My father, Frank, barely said 2 words since I arrived. He folded his napkin with the precision of someone avoiding eye contact. My sister, Kelsey, 28, floated in and out of the room, talking about Bitcoin and a friend's hot tub in Miami. I didn't say much. I never do anymore. I watched the fireplace flicker and tried to pretend this was home. Dinner started quiet, tense in the way only families can be. Frank passed the mashed potatoes without looking up. Diane carved the ham like it owed her money. Kelsey scrolled on her phone, laughing softly at something none of us could see. Then Diane raised her wine glass. "To family," she said. Her lipstick had smudged just a little on the rim, and to finally moving on from burdens that drag us down. It took me a second to realize what she meant. No one looked at me. Not even Frank. "You're not a hero," Carol Diane added. "You're a burden. You don't belong in this house anymore." I froze fork halfway to my mouth. The cranberry sauce on my plate suddenly looked like something else pooled congealed. I thought I was imagining it. I waited for anyone to push back, to say, "Mom, what the hell?" But they just kept eating, or pretending to. I set my fork down slowly. "Excuse me." I asked, my voice too calm. That always made her angrier. Diane tilted her head, almost pitying. "You came back with nothing but doctor's bills and nightmares. We tiptoe around your moods. And you still haven't paid rent." "Rent?" I blinked. "I sent money home every deployment." "We were drowning," she snapped. "You don't know what it's like to run a household." "I do," I said quietly. "Just not one where people pretend I'm invisible." Frank shifted in his chair but didn't speak. Kelsey stared at the table. I looked around at the people I'd given my 20s for and saw strangers. My hand trembled as I reached for my glass. And that's when I knew I hadn't come home. I'd walked into a house that no longer had room for me. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at my mother. Diane had already gone back to slicing ham as if she hadn't just cut me open with a sentence. Kelsey was tapping her phone again. Frank stared at his plate like the mashed potatoes held the answer to a war he'd never fought. "You know I didn't come back here to take anything I said low. I came because it's Christmas. Because I thought family meant something." "Family," Diane repeated, not looking up. "Means pulling your weight. Not sulking around with a bad back and nightmares no one knows how to fix." I didn't expect kindness. I didn't even expect gratitude, but I hadn't expected contempt. "You think I wanted this body?" I asked. "You think I asked for nerve damage and sleepless nights?" She set the knife down. It clicked hard against the ceramic plate. "You made your choices, Carol. You enlisted. You said you wanted to help us. So help us without dragging us down." I looked at Frank. "Dad." He flinched, just barely, then dropped his eyes again. The napkin in his lap had been folded into a perfect square. I turned to Kelsey. Anything to say? She didn't look at me, just took a long sip from her wine glass. I stood up slowly. My legs protested, my back flared, but I made it to standing. "I sent money every tour I said. Every single one. I sent it when I was sleeping in tents and brushing sand out of my teeth. You called crying about the mortgage. I wired it from a combat zone." Diane shrugged. "We're still behind, and you being here only makes it worse. You don't work. You don't contribute. I just got out of the damn hospital 6 weeks ago." "I'm too tired for this," she muttered, picking up plates. "You're a grown woman, Carol. Time to stop sucking us dry." She moved toward the kitchen. The room was silent except for the sound of silverware being stacked like it was any other night. I stared at her back, her perfect Christmas sweater. The house she paid off with my hazard pay. "I see," I said. "So that's how it is." "You want the truth," she called from the doorway. "You're not needed here." The words didn't even sting anymore. They just confirmed what my gut had been whispering since the day I walked in. Later that night, I sat on the edge of the couch and opened my laptop. I logged into my credit monitoring account. I hadn't checked in months. I didn't expect anything unusual. But then I saw it. A loan. $22,000. Taken out 6 months ago. My name. My social. A cosigner listed Diane Callahan, the stated purpose vehicle for rehabilitation transport. I didn't own a vehicle. I didn't even have a license anymore. I closed the laptop. My chest was tight. My face was hot. They didn't just erase me, they used me again. I packed in silence. I didn't slam a door or raise my voice. I folded my clothes like I was still on base, tight and clean, everything squared away. The loan documents I printed. The screenshot of the co-signed form. I slipped them into a folder with my name printed neatly across the tab, Carol Callahan, SSN, ending 1194. No one stopped me. As I zipped my duffel, I heard Diane in the kitchen running water over dishes. Frank was nowhere to be seen. Kelsey's voice floated from the hallway, something about gas prices and a friend in Scottsdale. When I stepped outside the porch, light flickered once before going out. I walked 3 blocks to the bus station with my bad leg dragging and my boots pressing old pain into the ground. It was close to midnight. The town was quiet, cold. No snow, just the bite of December on bare hands. I didn't buy a ticket home. I didn't even know where home was anymore. I bought a one-way fare to Mason County where my grandmother lived. Ruth Whitmore, 80 years old, gray hair, wild like a thicket eyes, still sharp. I hadn't seen her in 6 years, not since deployment, but I still remembered her voice. If you ever need somewhere to breathe, come here. The bus was mostly empty. I sat in the back with my coat pulled over my chest and my folder tucked like armor against my ribs. I didn't cry, but I didn't sleep either. We rolled through the dark hills and past frozen fields, towns that blinked and disappeared. When I stepped off in front of her mailbox, it was just past 5 a.m. The sky was violet and bleeding orange at the edge. Her porch light was already on. I didn't knock hard, just once. She opened the door in a flannel robe, eyes soft and unsurprised. Her gaze dropped to the duffel bag. The limp. The bruises I hadn't seen, but she did. And she said 5 words. I knew they'd do this. That was it. No lecture, no fuss. Just truth. I broke. Right there on her porch. I sank to the steps, and she lowered herself with me. She wrapped those bird-boned arms around my shoulders and held me like I was 6 again, scared of thunderstorms and the sound of my parents yelling behind closed doors. Inside, her house smelled like cinnamon and pine sol. The floors creaked in the same places. The radiator clicked. Everything was the same except me. She didn't ask questions that night. Just made up the guest bed with old quilts and set a glass of water beside the nightstand. I slept. Not like someone escaping, but like someone being let back in. In the mornings, I sat on her porch swing with black coffee and a blanket over my knees. The soybean fields were stripped for winter flat and frozen, but the horizon was wide. No one asked me for a favor. No one hinted at disappointment. No one looked at me like I owed them something. It felt strange at first being allowed to just exist. Veterans don't learn that. We learn to serve, to prove, to earn our place. Stillness felt disloyal, so I started writing. At first, just fragments. Words like IED, burn pit, 24-hour fire watch Kandahar. Then, whole memories came out. Some I hadn't touched in years. Some I had never said aloud. One page just read, "They called me a burden." But I carried them for 10 years. 2 weeks into staying with Grandma Ruth, I woke up with something unfamiliar in my chest. It wasn't peace, not yet. It was clarity. I drove her old truck into town, stiff at the wheel, my left leg fighting the clutch like a memory that wouldn't let go. At the VA clinic, a woman at the front desk glanced up with tired kindness. "I want help," I said. She nodded. Not surprised, not moved. Just like she'd heard it before and still thought it mattered. That same day, I met with a trauma counselor. She didn't ask me to relive anything, just sat there and let me speak when I was ready. I joined a peer group the following Tuesday, 5 of us. 3 men, 1 woman older than me. One had a prosthetic, one had eyes that never stopped scanning corners. We didn't shake hands. We nodded. After I shared part of my story, just the edge of it, one guy leaned forward and said, "You don't owe anyone anymore. We already paid." That stayed with me. It echoed in my head later that week when Grandma Ruth came into the living room holding a long white envelope. Her hands trembled, but her voice was firm. "It's time you saw this." Inside every letter I'd mailed her from every deployment, yellowing paper, sand still in the folds. Envelopes with my handwriting sometimes smudged, always signed Love Carol. And inside each one, carefully tucked, were photocopies of money orders. Each one matching the dates Diane claimed we never got enough. Ruth had even stapled printouts of bank transfers and Western Union receipts, each line highlighted. She'd kept track. While they spent, she documented. Ruth handed me an old cell phone next. Voicemails, she said. From your mother. Every time she called crying about bills. I played one. Diane's voice cracked through the static. Carol, if you don't send it this week, they'll take the house. Please, don't leave us like this. The same house she now said I never helped with. I sat there, folder on my lap, like holding my own defense in a courtroom that had already tried and sentenced me. The next morning, I met with an attorney in town. Small office. Quiet carpet. He was a veteran, too Navy. He didn't flinch when I handed him the documents. Identity theft, fraud, emotional coercion, he said. We can start with a credit freeze and go from there. I didn't want prison time. I just wanted my name back. He nodded. We'll restore it. Within a week, the VA Loans Department had flagged the account. Within 2, a fraud report was filed. My name was cleared on paper, but the stain still felt fresh under my skin. Kelsey's name appeared fast in the investigation. Co-signer, her IP address, her email trail. Diane's signature wasn't just co-signed, it was forged in my handwriting. The thing about healing is sometimes it starts with a knock. That knock came the following Thursday. Diane called the landline at Ruth's. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. You think you can ruin us after everything we did for you? I forwarded it to my lawyer. Uncle Dennis texted, "This is going too far." I blocked him. Frank never called. But Kelsey sent a single message. I didn't know it would hurt you like this. I just needed the money. I was scared. I didn't respond. Some truths don't need a conversation. They just need a boundary. That night, Ruth sat beside me on the porch. She handed me a mug of chamomile and said, "You didn't get justice, baby. You got clarity." Sometimes that's all we ever get. The air smelled like wood smoke. In the distance, someone's dog barked once and stopped. The stars were so many they pressed down like memory. And for the first time since I'd come home, I didn't feel erased. I felt real. The call came on a Tuesday, late afternoon. I was outside splitting kindling beside the shed when Grandma Ruth stepped out, cordless phone in hand. "It's your father," she said, and held it out like something fragile. I wiped my hands on my jeans before taking it. "Hi," I said, voice flat. There was a long pause. Then Frank's voice barely above a whisper. "I failed you, Carol." He said it like it had been rotting inside him for years. I kept quiet because I didn't want to lose her. He continued, "But I lost you instead." I leaned against the wall of the shed, let the wood rest against my hip. I didn't speak right away. "You didn't lose me, Dad," I said finally. "You gave me away." He didn't argue. The line went quiet except for the sound of him breathing. I could picture him at the kitchen table, napkin folded, eyes down, just like every dinner we ever shared. He cried, quiet, broken sobs that came in short bursts. I didn't join him. I just held the phone until he had nothing left. That call didn't fix anything. It didn't erase what he'd allowed. But maybe it cracked the surface of a silence I'd been drowning in my whole life. 2 days later, I got a message from Kelsey. Just one text. I messed up. I was scared. I was stupid. I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long time. The words didn't sting, didn't soothe. They felt like she'd copied them from somewhere too neat, too late. I didn't reply. Some ghosts belong unanswered. That night, I sat with Ruth in the kitchen. She was chopping apples for a pie, humming low under her breath. The same melody she used to sing when I had nightmares as a child. "I don't know if I'm angry or just done," I told her. "You don't have to decide," she said. "You don't owe them a resolution." I nodded. She slid the pie into the oven. Outside, the wind knocked once against the pane, then moved on. I enrolled in online night classes using my GI Bill cybersecurity. The irony didn't escape me. I'd spent a decade guarding convoys and clearing rooms, and now I was learning how to defend data instead of bodies. During the day, I worked part-time at a tractor repair shop in town. The owner, Jim, was ex-Air Force. First thing he said when I walked in was, "We don't care about your limp. Just show up, be honest, and finish what you start." That was enough. There was no uniform, no chain of command. Just wrenches, oil-stained rags, and the occasional awkward silence when I froze mid-task without realizing it. Some nights, I still jolted awake, heart pounding the dark thick with old echoes. But I wasn't in a barracks or on a cot. I was in a real bed under thick quilts in a room that smelled like lemon oil and laundry soap, and no one asked me for anything. No one watched me eat like I was using up resources. No one called me a burden. I started to believe I wasn't. One morning, just after sunrise, I sat on the porch swing with a cup of coffee. The soybean fields were turning green again, and the breeze smelled like wet earth. Grandma Ruth joined me, her own mug in hand. She watched the fields for a long time before speaking. "You know, baby," she said, "you didn't walk away from your family. You walked toward yourself." I didn't answer right away, but I smiled. And for the first time in years, I believed her. Some people will never apologize the way you needed. Some debts won't be repaid. Some wounds don't close, they just stop bleeding. But healing doesn't ask for permission. It waits for you to choose yourself. And then keeps waiting every single day you do.